Hey there everybody, it's Mike DiLisio, and today I'm coming to you with my top 10 push your luck games. I love push your luck as a board game mechanism, and through the years I've played a number of them. I tend to find myself enjoying dice games best as push your luck games, although increasingly I'm seeing it utilized very well in card games, things along those lines. And so you're going to see examples of both of those in this list. Let's just get right to it. My number 10 is Skate Summer. And the reason why this is number 10 and not a bit higher is that push your luck is definitely one aspect of the game, but it is not the entire aspect of the game. So that's why I put it a little bit lower. But the part that is push your luck is great. The idea behind this game, it's essentially like Tony Hawk video game in a board game fashion. And the push your luck element is playing cards to either side of a little player board, which is shaped like a skateboard. And so you're trying to pull off these tricks. But as you are increasingly making the trick more and more complex, you're rolling more and more dice that are going to potentially make you wipe out. And so I really like there's this idea of balance because you're playing cards on both sides of your skateboard. And so you're having to kind of balance literally and balance figuratively what cards you're playing, how many dice you're going to be rolling, how big of a risk you're willing to take for a potentially very high reward. So Skate Summer is a really, really good game. Fun push your luck. My number 9 is called Barrel Dice. It was originally called, I think, Polterfass, something like that in German. This is an old game, actually. And what's fun about barrel dice is that the dice are not traditional cubes, D6s. These are shaped like barrels. And so you're going to have one player who's the bartender in a particular round, and then everyone else is going to be trying to order drinks from the bartender, and that role will shift. It'll kind of pass along as players go on. But the bartender is going to put these barrel-shaped dice in a cup, shake it up, slam it down on the table, lift the cup, and the dice that are barrels that are standing up are the ones that are valid dice. And so once you have some dice with values on them, potentially with multipliers on them, the bartender then has to make a choice. Are they going to stop and kind of serve drinks, or are they going to continue to go and try to get more barrel dice standing up? The reason why a bartender might want to do that is because after the first die roll, valid die roll, players that are not the bartender are going to be putting a particular number of drinks that they want points. And if the number on the dice, the barrel dice, is more than the number of the total people who are asking for drinks, everyone gets their drinks and the bartender gets what's left over after that. However, if the bartender keeps going and they bust, essentially they get nothing and the other players get all the drinks. Really fun game. Lots of kind of like, yelling at the table moments. Number 8 is Moon Rollers. This is a brand new game, essentially, that's kind of a follow-up to Moon Rakers by the same publisher, IV Studios. But Moon Rollers is a push-your-luck dice game where you are trying to draft cards, but you're having to roll dice to be able to get these cards kind of fulfilled. And it uses a pretty familiar dice rolling mechanic where you can re-roll dice, but you can also potentially bust. One of the things I think is interesting about this particular implementation of that die rolling mechanic is that there's one face of a die that can add more dice to your dice pool, and I really enjoy that quite a bit. And so it takes something that's relatively familiar with the roll, re-roll, choose to re-roll, choose to stop, and add something with that extra die. A lot of fun. That is Moon Rollers. At number 7 is Malem. This is a push-your-luck dice game where every round one player is going to be the captain of a rocket ship that is trying to go higher and higher up this track. And other players are going to be passengers. And so you have little player powers that allow you to do something, and you're going to choose every round which player power you want to put on that rocket. And the captain is going to be the one that's rolling the dice. And each location is going to have particular valid die rolls that you need to roll to be able to successfully move forward. And so as you are using these dice, you are spending them, which means your pool is getting smaller and smaller. And so as you go further up, the rewards get better, but the dangers get higher, and you can choose at every stop, every successful stop, you can choose to hop off. Maybe you'll land on a planet, maybe you'll land on a moon, it's space themed. But you really want to get up to the very top where the points are the juiciest, but it's not easy to do. So Mlem is just a very satisfying, pure push your luck game. Number 6 is Deep Sea Adventure, a tiny little box game from Oink Games, a Japanese publisher. And this is a game where players essentially have a shared tank of oxygen. And what they are doing is they are rolling dice to descend downward towards the bottom of the ocean. And each space they go down is represented by a chip, and all of those chips, I should say, are treasures that could potentially be brought back to the submarine. And so players are having to decide how far do they want to go down before they decide that they're going to pick up some treasure and go back towards the surface to that submarine. And the thing that gets really kind of dangerous about it is that the more treasure you pick up, the more weighted down you are, which means the slower you go back up. And as soon as people start going back, they're consuming oxygen to do that. And so you have this shared pool, and there's a little game of chicken going on where players are trying to figure out when is everyone going to turn around and go back. Really clever game, small, simple, but it's been a hit for years. That is Deep Sea Adventure. Number 5 is Escape. I think the currently available version of this is called Rapido. And this is a game that have two dice that you're rolling, and they're not standard dice. Both of them have the values 1, 2, and 3, but they also have an X on them that's going to replace a different number. One of the dice has a value of 7 on it. And the idea behind it is that you are rolling these dice to determine a value. And so, for example, if you rolled a 4 and a 5, you can make that a 45 or a 54. And you want to have the highest number possible because you're going to be placing the dice, if you don't bust, by rolling one of those X's on anything other than your first roll, you're going to be placing them on a kind of a ranking chart. And it goes from 0 to 5. And if you place your dice, let's say on the 3, meaning that's kind of midway through, if no one bumps your dice by placing a higher value below yours on that ranking list, then you'll move forward that many spaces. It's a race, essentially, where you're trying to get to the end of this track. And so if you put them on 3 with a relatively high number, there's a pretty good chance that they may still be there on your turn and you move forward 3 spots. But there's a lot of potential bumping that can happen as well, a lot of potential busting. This is a raucous, fun, push your luck dice game that is Escape. Number 4 is Port Royal. This is a card game that uses a mechanism that I have seen in other games where you are flipping cards off the top of a deck of cards. And what you are trying to do is get cards that you need to put in front of you as type of a tableau. But if you flip and keep flipping every time you flip, you're increasing the chances of busting because this is a pirate themed game. And if you have 2 of the same types of ships that flip up, you bust and your turn is over. And so that relatively simple mechanism of flipping cards, like I said, I've seen it in other games, but tied in with the other elements of the game, there's some set collection, things along those lines, really make Port Royal a go-to game that I've been playing for a number of years. At number 3 is Ink and Gold, or Diamant, different name for the same game. And this is a game where you are trying to delve down into a cave, and you are also doing something similar where you are flipping over cards and you are trying to get treasure, right? So you want to get enough treasure, but you don't want to bust and have the cave collapse on you before you get out of there with your treasure. And that's going to happen by threat cards that come up. And so if 2 of a particular threat comes out and you're still in the cave, you lose any of the treasure that you gained, whereas other players that chose to end their turn by just returning, getting out of the cave with what they have, are going to be able to keep their treasure. It is a pretty pure push your luck experience, but no matter how many times you've busted, there's still this feeling that you can go deeper, you can get more. And that's the core of what makes it so good. Number 2 is, I believe, the purest push your luck game there is, and that is called Can't Stop. This is a classic older game where you are rolling dice and you are moving up a series of tracks that are on the board. And so the tracks are going to be of variable lengths based upon the probabilities of rolling that number. So with the dice you're rolling, the number 7 is going to have the highest priority, or highest probability of being rolled, so it has the longest track. And you're trying to get to the end of these tracks before other players. And so this idea of rolling and rolling and rolling until you have an invalid number that doesn't fit what tracks you're trying to move up, just is the purest push your luck experience there is, and it just is a joy. I just love the simplicity and elegance of Can't Stop. All right, my number 1 push your luck game is Ra. Not a huge surprise, it's my number 1 game of all time too. This is an auction game, but push your luck to me, I think, is what really makes this game shine. I do love auction games and I love the closed kind of action economy that this has, but it's really the push your luck that makes it shine. And so the main way you're pushing your luck is by pulling tiles out of a bag and lining them up. And if you're trying to gain the most amount of tiles, which usually you want to get these tiles that are going to be used for scoring in your player area. If you pull raw tiles out of the bag, that's going to potentially cause a busting of the game. So because the more raw tiles you pull out, they're moving down a track, and if you eventually pull too many raw tiles, you bust. And so there's just something that is so, I don't know, dynamic, kinetic that happens at the table when other players are rooting for someone to bust, because oftentimes it comes down to one player who has kind of gotten a little greedy and is wanting all of these big pieces. There might be some beautiful pieces that are laying there, but you're all chanting and you're waiting for a raw tile to be pulled, and everyone's going rah, rah, rah. And if you've ever seen this played in a convention, you're going to hear that happening, echoing through the hall, and it always gets my attention. I always love when someone is waiting for that big bust that happens in Raw. And so, number 1 push your luck game of all time is Raw. There you go, my top 10 push your luck games. That's going to do it for me. I will see you next time.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you like this review or whatever you just watched, wasn't it amazing? Check out our channel, Dice Tower. We have all kinds of things. We review games, we do top 10s, we play games live. It's all about board games, but especially the people who play them. Check out Dice Tower YouTube channel.